So I've never heard about men getting pregnant. I've never heard about this argument. It must be some part of what you call the far left that is so minuscule that I, who am...
No, Jane.
What?
It's not minuscule, and I'm sorry, you can't throw this back on us. I assume it's because you are locked into media that just never wants anyone in their audience to know anything sketchy about the blue team.
Jane Fonda has stepped back into the political scene again recently. From supporting protest narratives to criticizing Hollywood and the broader culture, she has been very active. But when she appeared with Bill Maher on Club Random and tried to explain those same views in a real discussion, things shifted quickly. Maher did not just agree with her. He questioned her, asked for details, and moved the talk away from slogans and into real-world points. So if you want to understand how that conversation played out, let's jump right in.
Are you kidding? Really? It was about a garage door?
Absolutely.
I'm sorry. Yeah, that is...
No, you know this about California. Come
No,
on.
I don't.
Well,
I'm sorry, I don't.
You've never heard that California is overtaxed and overregulated? That we are a one-party state where there's sort of no checks on that sort of extreme leftism. And what do you think?
I don't for a minute consider California a state that is extreme leftist. Not at all, not any way.
Well, that shows where your politics are.
There's a lot happening in this discussion, and the first thing you notice is how disconnected Jane Fonda seems. She comes across as someone who has spent so much time in celebrity activism, media praise, and political circles that she no longer hears how her ideas sound to everyday people. When your surroundings reward performance over honest questioning, it becomes easy to mistake approval for truth. This is where Maher becomes a challenge for her. He does not respond like a supporter, and he does not treat status as evidence. He keeps bringing the conversation back to how normal people see these issues. That is where things start to feel uncomfortable.
And these were people who were happy when Kennedy got assassinated. They became the birthers. They became the Tea Party. There's about a third of this country that's very hard right.
Mm-hmm.
Of course they love Trump. When he left office, he had an approval rating of 34%. So he really only had those people.
Mm-hmm.
Why is he now like tied? Because the other part of the coalition are people who, they don't really like him that much. They just think the far left has gone so nutty on so many issues.
That's what they're being told.
That's what
By people like you.
Because it's true. You think the far left does nothing crazy?
Oh, I'm sure they do.
What makes this moment stand out is how fast the contradiction appears. Fonda tries to claim that Maher is overstating the influence of the far left, as if it is mostly an exaggerated concern. But very quickly, she ends up admitting the same point she was trying to dismiss. And that pattern is familiar, isn't it? First comes denial, then distraction, then a reluctant acceptance that yes, some of this is actually happening. That change matters because once it happens, the argument is no longer about whether the issue exists. It turns into a debate over how serious it is and who has been ignoring it.
But I don't know, who is the far left? What do you mean when you say far left?
I mean, I could give you a million examples.
Yeah, well, give me one.
Okay, the NAACP.
You think the NAACP is far
Could
left?
I finish my sentence?
Yes.
You asked me for an example.
Yeah.
Travel advisory, that's like the State Department does to go to, I'm sure when you went to Vietnam, they were advising you not to. There's a war on it.
I didn't talk to them. I don't have them around.
I know, but you know a travel advisory.
Yeah.
Today we have them for very dangerous countries.
Yeah.
Don't go to North Korea. Don't go to Iran.
Yeah.
You know where they issued a travel advisory for Black people not to go?
Yeah.
Florida. Every day there's stories like that that just makes people roll their eyes and go, are you people nuts? Even if they don't matter that much, I don't think one person listened to this and thought, I can't go to Florida. But they just suggest something to the average person, which I completely understand, which is, wow, do you people ever find anything that's ridiculous?
That is why the Florida example plays such an important role in this discussion. When Maher is asked to give a real example, he does not stay vague. He points to something specific that many viewers would quickly recognize as the kind of action that makes activists seem out of touch with common sense. Whether people agree with it or not, Maher's main point is clear. It is not just one issue or one phrase that pushes people away. It is the buildup of moments where everyday voters look at institutions or media voices and wonder if they are being serious. That reaction has real political consequences, and Maher clearly understands that.
You really think men can get pregnant? That kind of stuff. And I understand that a trans woman can get pregnant. That's different than a man getting pregnant. And the way they sort of insist on blurring that line is if that's some sort of reasonable social cause, as opposed to just being for having full rights, respect, and protection for trans people.
The most intense part of this exchange is the argument about biology. Maher is not saying people should disrespect trans individuals. He is saying people should stop claiming that a trans woman can become pregnant. She cannot. That is not hate. That is basic science. But parts of the trans movement continue to push ideas like men can give birth or that gender has no link to biological sex, and then question why people tune out. Every time they ask society to change scientific facts to fit ideology, they lose support. Real support. People who would defend trans rights but are not willing to ignore common sense to do so. If you want a stronger approach, support trans freedom and protect dignity, but do not force people to deny what they clearly see. Because when disagreement is punished instead of addressed, backlash does not just grow, it explodes.
We get that.
So I've never heard about men getting pregnant. I've never heard about this argument. It must be some part of what you call the far left that is so minuscule that I, who am...
No, Jane,
What?
It's not minuscule, and I'm sorry, you can't throw this back on us. I assume it's because you are locked into media that just never wants anyone in their audience to know anything sketchy about the blue team.
This is where the discussion really shifts against Fonda. She tries to downplay the issue and present it as something very small that barely exists. But that claim breaks down quickly. Too many people have heard these ideas, followed these debates, and watched them spread through media, education, entertainment, and politics for that argument to sound convincing anymore. Maher's response works because he is not saying every Democrat agrees. He is saying these ideas have become influential enough that pretending they do not exist is no longer believable. And once Fonda moves from defending them to acting unfamiliar with them, her position starts to seem avoidant instead of persuasive.
Well,
And that's...
I mean, I don't know. I read 2 papers, and maybe I don't. I should watch Fox News.
No,
I guess.
I don't watch that. That's too far. But you don't have to. I'm not going to torture myself.
By the time the conversation reaches the Fox News comment, the tone has already changed. What makes that moment stand out is not the joke itself, but what it suggests. It feels like a small break in the surface. A moment where Fonda indirectly admits that her information bubble might be more limited than she realized. That idea runs through the entire discussion. It is not just about disagreement, but isolation. Maher is not showing her something rare or hidden online. He is pointing to opinions and reactions that millions of people have been seeing for years. And when someone at her level seems genuinely surprised by that, it reveals how disconnected elite conversations can become.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot we could unpack there, but that certainly has been the history of this country, was police who were all too willing to shoot Black people. So defund the police, though, was not a good idea. And you know who mostly didn't think it was a good idea was Black people, because they want police in their neighborhoods, probably more than we need them in ours.
The same pattern appears again when the topic shifts to defunding the police. This is one of the clearest examples of how powerful slogans can fall apart when tested by reality. In the moment, it was presented as a clear moral stance. But over time, the real-world effects became harder to ignore, especially in communities that rely most on public safety. That is why Maher's point goes beyond a single phrase. He is showing how parts of activist politics often confuse strong messaging with effective policy. And when the results appear, many of the same voices who promoted the idea act as if they were misunderstood. That cycle has seriously damaged trust.
But the Republicans tried to catch the Democrats with this, and they put this on, they brought it up in Congress.
Yeah.
And all the Democrats voted against it. The Democratic politicians were not for defunding the police. It's that radical fringe that has captured a lot of the media, academia, some of these cultural institutions that are not liberal anymore by my old school liberalism. The ACLU is all about free speech. They don't really believe in it anymore. They believe, in one of their chief people who is trans said, I will die on this hill of banning this book.
Maher's broader argument is that the issue is no longer limited to a few extreme voices. In his view, the overall tone of the left has increasingly been shaped by the most rigid and ideological people. They influence the language, pressure institutions, and reduce space for open disagreement. At the same time, many who might disagree stay silent because they know the consequences of speaking out can be immediate and harsh. That is what makes this problem bigger than just one debate clip. It becomes a system where fear replaces discussion and conformity replaces persuasion. And if a political movement continues to reward that behavior, it should not be surprised when ordinary voters start stepping away.
Top story. Most voters say U.S. can't repair severe divisions. And they went into the fact that 5 years ago, even during the pandemic and during the George Floyd protests, even then, people thought, well, we are going to get through this. And now they seem to be on the page of, it's not going to happen.
Bill,
What do we do? But did you see the story?
Yeah, and I think what's new about this moment, one of my teachers and friends, Dov Seidman, likes to say this, we aren't divided, we are being divided.
That's right.
By companies for profit, okay? And we have our divisions, we always have them.
Maher's broader argument is that the issue is no longer limited to a few extreme voices. In his view, the overall tone of the left has increasingly been shaped by the most rigid and ideological people. They influence the language, pressure institutions, and reduce space for open disagreement. At the same time, many who might disagree stay silent because they know the consequences of speaking out can be immediate and harsh. That is what makes this problem bigger than just one debate clip. It becomes a system where fear replaces discussion and conformity replaces persuasion. And if a political movement continues to reward that behavior, it should not be surprised when ordinary voters start stepping away.
At some point, you on your phone, you ordered a yoga mat or something. Your algorithm figured out you're a liberal. Then your neighbor looked up a truck. You're a conservative. And from that day forward, you got different information every day and nobody sent the notice. And so now you literally think your neighbor is insane because how could they possibly think this stuff? But if you put your phone next to their phone, you're in different algorithmic universes, and that is brand new and very dangerous.
One part of the wider discussion that truly deserves attention is the role of algorithms and information bubbles. Because if people are constantly shown different versions of reality, it is no surprise that understanding breaks down. Social platforms keep giving users more of what agrees with them, more of what comforts them, and less of what challenges them. That does not create informed individuals. It creates separated groups. If there is any solution to this situation, it likely begins with more exposure to honest disagreement and less reliance on filtered comfort. People need to hear views they disagree with without seeing them as a threat. Otherwise, we will continue mistaking familiarity for truth and outrage for understanding. If you like this breakdown, make sure to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments.